into it as we go. See, here we are. We are live, everyone. Hello, welcome to a live episode of Proceed with Passion Q&A. I am your host, Terry Schilling, and with me today in the hot seat is Susan Reoch from Sydney, Australia. Susan, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thanks, Terry. Early in the morning here, mid-afternoon for you, so we're doing our best cross time zones.
Yes. I've worked with Australian clients before, and it was always, for lack of a better word, the toughest challenge with the time difference. Because usually my intro calls or calls were like at 5:30, 6 p.m., where I'm a little bit more inclined to be done for the day. But it's the price of doing business online and working with some amazing people in Australia. So can't complain, I guess, right?
That's it. And you've got to get used to my accent as well.
Oh, well, yeah. You know, us Americans, we're suckers for accents, especially Australian. This will be great. But yeah, thank you for being a trooper, getting up early. I know you're a mom of twins, so I know the morning time, I imagine, can be precious. But we're spending it, I don't know, hopefully one of the best ways you can today. But talking with me today.
Absolutely.
But to everyone watching along, hello, it's good to see you guys once again. For all the replay watchers, hello. We're live on the Facebook Copy Co-op group and in YouTube. And what I like to do with these interviews is we'd like to bring on creative humans and talk about their journey and how they, started those early learning lessons and how they got to do what they're passionate about right now. And then we come up with some actionable tips. We talk about some of the things that you're really good at, Susan, which is UX writing. So we're going to be talking about that here shortly. But Susan, let's get into kind of your background and then ultimately what led you to where you are today. So you were studying English literature and history from what I saw on the LinkedIn experience. What was that experience like for you, and what were you hoping to do really after college with that? Or uni, as you say. Yes.
You know what, like LinkedIn obviously gets the abbreviated
it sure does, yeah.
CV, because I actually started in architecture. I was good at maths. I got the marks. And so I thought, hey, this seems like a good fit. And I hated it.
I had a friend that went to architecture and was just like, this isn't for me.
No, I was like, I'm out. So I traveled for 6 months and learned a lot about myself and just decided to follow what I love, which was English literature, and sort of not worry too much about where that was going to take me in the long run. But it worked out really well. And there's been sort of tangents after that. I did teaching for a while. I've, just traveled and picked up whatever work that I can and worked in an optician for a while. Like literally I've done, I feel like, a lot of jobs. But it was actually during my travels that I fell into UX writing, and it was a bit of a lucky chance, I think. And that was about 10 years ago now, in my late 20s. And it was just, I just think there's a lot of pressure, especially on young people, to know what they want to do and to climb that ladder really quickly. Definitely. But over time, what you realize is that life is really long. And luckily, we live in an age where, we're not in the one job or the one career for our whole lives. We get to move around a little bit. And things that you learn, I learned something in every single job. I learn a lot working in the bakery about customer service that feeds into what I'm doing now, So I think just always keeping an open mind and having dignity and integrity in any job that you do, it will always take you somewhere. So
it will pay you back. Yeah, it will pay you back some way. It's
Definitely.
So, I love how you talked about how, life is long and that there is this pressure as, a young 20-some-year-old of like, what am I going to do with my life? And I just think, because like my nephew is 17 and he's going into his senior year of high school or just started it. And like, I'm just thinking, it's like, wow, in 5 years, you'll be 22. And it's just like, I'm 34. And it's like, man, you got like then 12 more years after that. It's just like, you have so much time to enjoy life and figure shit out. And it's just like, you get a little bit envious, but it's like, you have so much life ahead of you. You don't have to figure out everything, right away.
Yeah, and you can't either. You just don't know what's in store, but I do think like I'm so glad for the experiences that I had in my 20s and the risks that I took in like, leaving jobs and just buying a ticket somewhere and going traveling and meeting new people. Because as you get older, you do kind of, I've got a mortgage, I've got kids, you do become less free in some ways. And I'm very lucky with the family that I have and the security that I have. But yeah, I look back on those times very fondly. And even though I was broke and my friends in Sydney were earning great wages and like living the high life, and I was like sipping a $1 beer in Czech Republic or something. And at the time, I was envious, but I look back and I just think, especially with COVID, I think, I was so lucky that I went and did those things.
You got to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you kind of fell into UX writing. Elaborate on that story, please.
Yeah, for sure. So I was I'd moved to the Netherlands. I was living in Amsterdam. Cool. Yeah, it was really cool. I had a European passport, so I was lucky. I was one of the lucky ones. So I was living in Amsterdam, and this job came up at a company called Booking.com.
Yeah.
Which was, less well known then. And it was in the content writing department, writing hotel descriptions. And I thought, I can do that. I'm a good writer. I love travel. This is perfect. And luckily they gave me that job, and it was amazing. And once I was in that company, there was just so much opportunity. And this is something that I talk to when a lot of people write to me, answer my emails that I send out every week, and they ask me for advice to get into UX writing. Because it's still a small field and there aren't as many opportunities as there might be in, some more established industries. And I always say, if you can find, a company that has a UX writing department or the potential for it, and there's a sort of adjacent role, that can be a great way to get in. And then just, make friends, network, talk to people, show that you're interested. And you can get in that way. I think that's certainly what worked for me. So
How did you find the job with Booking? Like, how did that more specifically, come about? Was it like with Fiverr, Upwork, Elance, one of those things?
No, I can't even. Terry, this is 10 years ago. I'm presuming
you just snap back to sitting drinking a $1 beer and writing copy.
I know. I presume it was on a job board, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think at the time I had actually, when I got there, I just, took whatever job, and I was working as an executive assistant, which was also a great job. Yeah. But I really wanted to do something with writing. And so I just I just kept an eye on, I got all the emails coming into my inbox. And I think just apply. Do you know what I mean? Just apply. Yeah. Apply for everything. Yeah. And all those HR tips, like tailor each CV. Like, I really wanted this job. I invested a lot in it. It seemed too good to be true. So, I'm pretty sure it was through a job board.
Yeah, that's so cool. Not to try to one up your story, because I'm not. I had something similar where one of my first big projects was writing product descriptions for Joybird Furniture. And at the time, they were a pretty popular site. For just like mid-century modern furniture online and just this online shopping experience, kind of like a classier Wayfair, if you will, and was writing a ton of their product descriptions. And now they're being like ads for Dax Shepard's podcast and just all these big podcasts. And now they're like huge and everything. So it's just really cool to kind of see how that, has evolved. But to your point, just apply. If it feels like a good fit, it's like it could turn into something really cool on your portfolio at the end of the day. And also just an experience for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the people that you meet in those sort of startup companies too, that does you well for the rest of your career. Like, the people that I started there with have all gone on to do the most amazing things, and they're all my peers now. And so then your network expands, and the companies that you're, put in touch with expands, and it all just grows from there. Yeah, startups, are great if you can get in. Yeah,
love it. Now, I want you to think, Susan, of the first writing project you had, perhaps for Booking.com, because what I like to talk about is the first projects, the first client projects. So, what was that like? What were you doing? How was it working with the client at the time? What do you remember of that?
Yeah, for sure. I think I had 3 roles at Booking.com. I was like a content writer writing the hotel descriptions. I was their social media manager for a while. And then I moved into UX writing. So I'll keep it to the UX writing part of it, because that's really where my expertise is now.
Yeah.
But so when you're UX writing, especially in a big company, you're sort of working often across multiple teams that will be responsible for different parts of the website or different user journeys, or just different parts of the infrastructure like email or front end, back end. There's sort of all these different teams. And often as a UX writer, you're spread across some of those teams, servicing them all. So, and several times a day, you have to like put on a different hat, get into what that team's doing, attend something that's called a stand-up meeting, which is like a short 10-minute meeting at the beginning of the day where, the team discusses their priorities and what they're doing for the day, and just go, okay, I need to like deliver this bit of copy, deliver that bit of copy, sit in on this bit of user research. So that switching between projects was definitely a massive learning curve for me. I think like a lot of writers, you're used to being able to get really deep into the work, and they're just, that was a challenge for sure, because you don't always have that time, and you're required to sort of be very quick on your feet and be able to like, speak up when you need to speak up, because if you're the only person considering the words in that team, if there's like something called a product owner, which is like the project manager of the team, you'll have some developers, you'll have the designers, and you're the only words person, you need to make sure that all those words, considerations are being advocated for. And so I think that was the other big lesson for me, just learning to use my voice, amongst really smart people, and daring to challenge them. And, had they thought about the user, in this, are we missing a step? What happens next? Like asking all those kind of questions. So I think rather than, the technical part of writing, with the UX writing, so much of it is strategy and interacting with a team and, having those conversations. And that's just as important as the final words that sort of, end up on the website or wherever.
Yeah. No, awesome. It was just so interesting because like, was UX writing even a thing? And I'm not trying to like date you, but it just feels like a more new term. It's
no,
like,
man, I'm old. I'm older than UX writing anyway.
Old. Yeah, oh my gosh. Stop. See, there's no winning. Once that started coming out of my mouth, I was like, there's no coming back. I'm gonna make her feel old.
No, really. I love it. Like, I'm one of the first UX writers on the planet. I think that's a really so cool. privileged place to be. It's also terrifying because I look around sometimes for guidance and I'm like, oh, hang on. No, everyone's looking at me.
Yeah.
But no, so when I started there, I think we were called e-commerce copywriters or something like that. It really didn't have a name, and it didn't have a name for as long as it had that name, but it wasn't called UX writing, and it wasn't kind of acknowledged in the world more generally as a specific, I guess, discipline of writing, which when I came back to Australia made it super challenging to find a job, because I was calling myself a copywriter. And I'd go for these like traditional copywriting jobs, and they'd be like, show me your experience. And I would show them this portfolio with all this strategy and tech. And they were just like,
where's like the quick whippy line that I want to see? Is it what?
So it took a little while, to sort of find my feet when I moved back home. And Australia is a little bit, behind places like Amsterdam or Berlin or America. And we're a bit more early adopting. But now it's taken off. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I was going to say, because then if we jump ahead after booking.com, you came back home, as you just referenced, and then you got into digital marketing, where a senior copywriter for Orange Line, which is that an agency in Sydney?
Yeah, agency work. Yep.
And so that was for a couple years. And so what was that experience like, the agency life?
Yeah, it was great, Again, just like that whole, my philosophy in life of just like taking everything I can from every opportunity that I get. And that's where I really honed my traditional copywriting skills, which, now play really nicely together with UX writing skills. I still work mostly with really big multi-million sort of dollar enterprise size brands and companies, but my passion is writing websites for entrepreneurs and giving them the advantage of all my UX writing sort of skills to take a more holistic look at their website and really look at the user journeys and the user flows and like bring a little bit more empathy into their copy. But I need obviously the copywriting skill set to, you know, to write a lot of the words on the page. So it was really good learning experience. And in that time, I had my twin daughters. So it was also, you know, we're not just working machines. Like we have a personal life as well, and it just worked well for that period of my life. But after that, I started my own business and pivoted back to the UX writing because that's just what I love mostly.
Yeah. So you started that a little over a year ago, correct?
Yeah,
your own business.
2 years. Yeah, crazy.
It's been that's awesome. And so you kind of found your niche with UX writing. What was the moment for you though, Susan, where you're just like, I can do this on my own, and I'm going to do it. Nervous, scared, all the emotions.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a family where people have like jobs. Do you know what I mean? They're accountants, they're teachers, they're nurses, they're social workers, electricians. Like people have a title. And I had always felt that I wanted to be a business owner, but I didn't know what that looked like because I'd never seen anyone really near me do it.
Yeah.
But again, actually having my kids was the catalyst because it was kind of the option to have them in daycare 5 days a week and have a full-time job, or to go out on my own and have a little bit more time with them. And I just thought, you know, I'll give it a go. Worst case scenario, I can go back to agency land or an in-house gig. And then I just never looked back. It's been amazing. Like it's just having your own business, being your own boss is like the best thing ever. I pinch myself every day.
Yeah, I am 100% with you. It's like, because I thought the same coming back from agency life or coming from there. It's like, I could kind of, and sometimes in the beginning I kind of tapped into that. I even like had like one toe in like the full-time agency. If it was a really cool fit, I could get into that. But the more I did it, you know, even like the struggles and like the wins and everything, it was just like, this is so much better than like answering to somebody. It's like, yes, you answer to clients, but you have so much more control, obviously, over a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that one-to-one. You know, in an agency model, you often have an account manager in between you and the client. And I actually love that part of my business. I love talking to my clients and hearing what they're saying. And it's great having that direct contact for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is just, you get to meet so many other people that way. And it's just a fun part of the project is helping people. And you touched on this. And I feel like this is a good time to talk about the UX writing side, you know, because you did have to learn more copywriting methods and how to, you know, maybe write with empathy and like different like practices, but you knew the UX side. So that's super interesting. But Susan, I want to know, how do you define UX writing?
Yeah. It's such a good question, Terry. And to be honest, I've answered this question so many times and I'm never happy with my answer. I think because it's so broad, you know, and I do see, I'm just going to make a little prediction here. I do think as it becomes more developed, it's going to start breaking off and becoming even more specialized. But in essence, what it is, it's about making digital products easier to use with words. And when I talk about digital products, you know, that's a bit of a vague term as well, but it's usually apps or sort of subscription style websites. So, you know, you'll have your copywriting page or your marketing page that sort of sells you to use this bank or, you know, products like Grammarly or Dropbox or, you know, any of those. But then once you've signed up, you've converted, and you sign into your account, there's all these words that help you navigate that product and achieve your goals. You know, for banking, it might be something as simple as making a payment to someone else, or, you know, but the little words that are used to help you get there, the error messages, the tooltips, the labels, that's all UX writing. And if you think about a site where you don't log in, but like an e-commerce site, that is also UX writing. So the product descriptions will kind of be a copywriter working on it. But if you think about, when you go to you want to buy a new pair of pants and you're like, okay, the first thing you do is you go, okay, I want to look at the women's selection. I want to look at the men's or the children's. And then once you're in there, you're like, okay, I want to sort it by skirts, tops, blah, blah, blah. That's a UX writer deciding like what are people going to be looking for? What's the most natural thing that's going to spring to their mind? What are the words that they would use? So it's like tiny little words, but like they have a massive impact on whether someone can actually use your product or not.
Yeah. I also think of it too. That's honestly a great description, because it's like you have your broad example, right? It's like the big idea, and then you broke it down, which is nice. And I think it adds a lot of clarity. But I think of too, like even like a checkout kiosk at the airport, just like all those things, that are directing you of where to go. It's like error message, of just like how many bags, 0 through 1. It's like, do you do this? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, that's really what, UX writing, it's making it clear for you, and it's directing you where you need to be. And if you make a mistake, it will help you get back to where you need to be, type of thing.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully, exactly.
Or you just close down and never use them again. The stakes are high. But I'm super excited that you brought up this airport example, because one of my big passions is actually real life UX. Like a lot of what we do is looking at how it's about people, right? It's just that it's translated into digital. And so I love the example that you gave about the airlines, because one of my favorite examples of really great user experience design is actually Schiphol Airport, which is in Amsterdam.
Okay.
And so they did this amazing it's called wayfinding, apparently. If you Google Schiphol Airport wayfinding, you're going to read all about it. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but without changing any size or building new buildings, they managed to fit like some incredible amount of more people into the airport just by using like really clever signage. So people weren't getting lost. They were going exactly where they needed to go, and therefore more people could get in. And I just think that's just so clever. And that's what we're doing on digital products. We're just easing the way, like, for people to get to where they want to go without taking too many detours or getting lost. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the real life UX. That's so interesting. What's like, I've seen like a funny sign, like above a bridge. And if it was too short, it's like, if you can read this sign, it's like your truck didn't make it or something like around those lines. That's super interesting. It's a super interesting way of putting it.
It's everywhere. And like often I'll see something like, for example, I live on a cul-de-sac, which, a road that goes nowhere. And they want to, like people were just kind of parking anywhere. And so instead of having people parking like parallel to the curb, they turned it 90 degrees and they put lines on the road. And now, 3 times as many cars can fit in that road. Like it's literally all around us. And I just think you can get so much inspiration from that.
Yeah, well, it's like we see examples of this a lot, and it's like people are just like, this is great copy. I feel like we can like start like trademarking this phrase, Susan, of just like real life UX copy instead of just like great copy example. And people will be like, oh, no shit, that's true. Like UX, it is a user experience, walking down the street, not getting lost, things like that. So
yeah, man. I certainly hope that if anyone takes anything away from that, it's that they're going to start looking for how certain interactions around the world makes them feel, and trying to bring the really good positive experienes into their websites. Yeah.
Speaking of websites, nice transition, nice segue. Seamless there.
You learned from Brenna McGowan then.
Yes, exactly. Nice, a little Brenna drop with the segue. Love this. She listens back. But I'm curious, what is like the biggest mistake that you see with UX writing on like an entrepreneur website?
Yeah, I think it's definitely lack of clarity.
Okay.
I think that people get caught up with trying to be clever or making funny little puns or like, pumping their personality into, and they forget to tell people what they do. And especially in their headline. And I'm going to hold my hand up and say that I was guilty with this with my first website. I think my first website headline was "Send your message loud and clear." I mean, what do I even do? What is that? It's just like, I feel
like I had something like that too. Yeah.
you know, and I think now I've got UX writer for complex brands, so that, you know, the minute people land there, they're like, what does she do? UX writing. Who does she do it for? Complicated brands. Am I a complicated brand? Yes, I am. Okay, let's go. Like, it just, you know, that first message needs to really hit home. And especially when you think about a lot of your traffic is probably coming from Google. And I'm not an SEO expert, but I've certainly got SEO experience. And a lot of people that will be typing in, you know, UX writer or copywriter or whatever, they, you know, you make it as easy as possible for them to know that you are what they were actually looking for by having that term in your headline. Plus, it's just good for SEO as well. And then you can, you know, then you can bring them on the journey. But just still, sometimes I see a lot of waffle on websites, and I'm just like, cut it. Just be willing to, like, you know, delete whole sentences. I really think I'm just the world's best editor. Well, not the world's best. One of the world's best editors.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Because I'm just always cutting copy, cutting words. Where can we get rid of stuff? And often when I come into, you know, a big brand and I'm doing a UX writing audit, I'll be like, you don't need this much, you know, here. Can we get rid of this? Can we, you know, you really want to make sure that the most important information is available to people. And that often means cutting things out. So, yeah, I think too much waffle, not a clear headline, and boring CTAs, lazy CTAs, call to action.
Learn more, like offer, start,
Subscribe. Subscribe, Terry. Subscribe kills me.
Oh, man. I don't know if I actually changed it yet on my site, but I had the classic join the conversation, like subscribe to my email list. And I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, I could be way more clear here and just like have micro copy. It's like subscribe to my newsletter and get XYZ. And then the CTA could be like, you know, get this in my inbox, something like that. Right.
Yeah.
It's a little bit better.
I know Copy Hackers. I was trying to look it up before this interview and I didn't get time, but they had an awesome Instagram post on like friction words and then like low friction words. So we talk a lot about friction in UX writing, and it's basically like where you frustrate a user because they can't get to where they want to go quick enough. And if you say something like subscribe, you're asking them to do something and it creates friction. They're immediately like, hang on, I have to do this. Whereas if you use the best word right there, you said get. You're like, you're giving me something? Like immediately you're dropping the friction down. So, you know, and if like I often see it on e-commerce sites where they're offering a discount, which is fantastic, right? But their CTA is still subscribe. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just say get 10% off?
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's so easy. Give people the value in that button, because they could just be, they probably are just scanning your site. And the button is the one thing that they're going to read. Excuse me, I'm getting very passionate about this.
All good. Quick water break. It's all good.
I will take a quick tea break. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I'll take a sip too. This is great TV.
Real life.
Oh man. So that's such a great point. Just a great way to frame it, of just like subscribe is really causing friction because you're having them do something. And by just switching it to get just makes it easier. Like, oh yes, I am getting something. I know I talked with another person in one of these interviews, Eden Badani, about who's like works a lot with landing pages, and one of her favorite copywriting words was the word get. So I think that's, you know, just a great tip in general, just to use a little bit more throughout.
For sure. I've had a lot of success. I've earned a lot of people a lot of money with that word.
Yeah. What would you say is the best time to put your call to action button if you're going through a website?
Oh man, great question.
Yeah.
Love this. Okay, so homepages are a little different to the rest of your website, right? Because they sort of act as mini landing pages all stacked on top of each other. You know, maybe people want to learn more about you or they want to see your services. You're kind of giving them a bunch of options there. But I would say once you're through the home, well, first of all, you need to have a CTA above the fold. I just think that is like the easiest thing you can do to help people convert, because people aren't always going to scroll down. So you need to be able to give them the option, especially on mobile, to click as soon as possible. And then I think like once you're through to the homepage, give people multiple choices to complete the same action. So no matter how far down the page they go, they should have a few opportunities to do the thing that you want them to do on that page. But I also think, Terry, there's a step before that where you need to be thinking about how people actually move through your site and mapping out like some of the key, it's almost like in copywriting world, you talk about funnels. In UX writing, we talk about user journey mapping and just looking at like where they land and then what they would do and then what happens next. And that makes it way easier to write those powerful CTAs because you're actually thinking a couple of steps ahead.
Yeah. I'm taking notes if you see my head down.
That's good.
Yeah.
And also think about, having some buttons for sure, but also having some contextual CTAs in there as well that go to the same place. So, and contextual CTAs are in a block of copy. You might have, oh God, this is really hard to think on the spot here. Like you want someone to download your guide. Within the copy, you might be like, get my free guide to get to, for 10 stellar UX copy tips. Have that hyperlinked, so that it's not, they don't have to read through that and then get to the button. You're literally catching them at that moment with a CTA. So yeah, I would have a few buttons and a few contextual. And I think like the placement is like, just think about as you go down the page. You don't want to be like button, button, button because it starts to look spammy. But is there a natural sort of end to the story? Are you leading them to a place that they might want to, learn more or subscribe without using those words? And I think another really important part of what we do as UX writers is making copy and words available to as many people as possible. So accessibility is a big part of that. And if you just have click here and someone's using a screen reader or, maybe they've got a migraine that day and they're just, they're struggling to get what they want. Like the clearer you can make what's going to happen when you press that button, the better it is. So there was a lot of tips bundled up in there. Sorry, Jerry.
No, it's so good though, because I think it's so important. Like I love just even like having a call to action button at the top of the fold, because you brought up a great point about people reading it on mobile. Like even if it's like, if you know where customers are finding you, it could just be like something, learn more about me, or just like hear more about my story, just like something for them to think about it. But you bring up a good point of just like the journey mapping side of things is like, where are they going to be? Like, how are they going to navigate my website? Where should I take them?
And if people do want to try that exercise, the Nielsen Norman group is a great resource, and they have loads of templates and more information on any of the stuff that I'm talking about today. They're really, really an amazing organization. So people can find a template there and, just sort of fill them in. And it basically just gives you an opportunity to sort of just look, okay, they go from home to about to contact page maybe, and what are people thinking and feeling and doing and saying in each of those spots, and then is there a step that I've missed out? And you learn all sorts of things that you haven't considered before.
Yeah, totally. It's so interesting. It makes you want to look at my website now and just finally like, because I'm like not constantly, but occasionally we'll look at it and feel about like changing it. Because I just have like a splash page, so it's like what I do and then like 2 call to action buttons, like to view my work or to work with me. But I just wonder, it's like interesting to look at, like, is work with me the right way to say it? It could be a little bit more friendly to kind of lead them along. Again, I'm just talking out loud right now, but that's
I love it. This is exactly what I hope people do with this conversation is just, and like my website is not perfect. We're all just doing the best that we can. And what I love about, because we've got, especially as an entrepreneur, you've got a lot of demands on your time. But I think what's so great about UX writing is you don't have to overhaul your whole site. I play with my headlines and my button copy like constantly. Even on Instagram, my little, call to action to press the link. I have like every time I do a new post, I try out, that's asking people to go to the link in my bio. I try out a new little bit of, micro copy above that link just to see, what actually gets people clicking through. And it definitely has an impact.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just remember one Instagram story I did like for a podcast episode, and it's just like, it was like in less than 8 minutes you'll get this. Is like I think we're giving away too much, honestly, and or like in less than 8 minutes. But I think that time frame just made it seem less strenuous. You know, it's just like, oh, this is a quick, and like I got like a couple of responses, and it was probably our highest listened to episode from what I've seen. So yeah, it's just fun to tweak things like that, you know?
Yeah, and I love that example because talking about friction again.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of what I do is about empathy, and you're being empathetic to your users there. You're like, I know time is short. I get you.
Right.
That's why I'm doing this in less than 8 minutes. And you're being upfront and honest about it, not waiting for them to click through and then discover, you know, it's 8 minutes, 8 hours, whatever. Like being really clear. And that comes back to the clarity thing. Like the clear is kind. The more you can tell them in the shortest amount of words, and that's the real challenge. Definitely, you know, you're going to get more people clicking through.
Yeah, absolutely. And oh man, it's so interesting. Just like, again, like tweaking things like that. And yeah, it's just like you're answering an objection too, in a way. If you think about it, it's like, what's one thing that like causes like pain for them? And like, why would they not do this? It's like, oh, they may think it's just like a 50-minute episode. It's like, well, in 7 minutes, you'll get this. And then you can get back to your day type of like, vibe, you know?
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And going back to the CTA thing too, I'm giving away all my trade secrets now. I hope people are watching this because this is like, I
love the CTA. I love the CTA because sometimes I can get lazy. Like I've been doing a few more copy audits, and I've been trying to get creative with CTAs of just like, I'm ready to enroll, or like enroll me in this class to keep it first person. But I'm always trying to be conscious of like that micro copy is, like I say, above that to kind of really get them curious and entice them to click that button.
Yeah, and like to that point, like looking at what goes around your button is actually as important as what goes on your button. Yeah. You know, like if it's a really, you know, if it's a buy now button where stakes are high and someone's maybe, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll think about this a bit more or whatever, have some social proof there. Have a testimonial right under saying this was the best decision I ever made. It's changed my life. Blah, 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 you know, have a 5-star, if you've got 5-star review, have a 5-star, you know, or whatever your stars are. Have a little, you know, if you look at looking at the big guys and seeing what they're doing, you can get a lot of inspiration from it. But for most e-commerce sites, when you buy something with PayPal or Stripe or whatever, you know, they'll have all these stamps of authority. They'll have the little MasterCard logo, the little Visa logo. They'll have a little lock. They'll say that your data is encrypted. You know, all those things are building trust with people. And they're just as, you know, even if you had the best CTA in the world on that button, if you didn't have all that other stuff holding it up, it probably wouldn't convert as well. So yeah, it's also what goes around the button as well as what goes on it.
Yeah, I love it. Ton of great tips here. I feel like we could just like power could go out, but still people would get all the value from this interview. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Don't want to put that, you know, energy in the universe right now. But just a couple more questions. What are some of your favorite, lack of a better phrase, power words for copywriting or even for UX writing? Like that first word in the sentence.
Oh, that's a really good question. So we've talked about get. Yeah. Because I think that is really strong. But I think also start is really positive. It's really, you know, it gets people moving and it gets people dreaming as well about what, you know, you're starting a new journey. It really taps into that transformation. Yeah. It could be something like share. I often think share is a nice way of like sort of a friendlier way of getting people to, I don't know, write back to your, you know, like your content.
Like share your suggestions or something like that.
Yeah. And it gives a sense of community too. And people
like
to be
that.
Totally. You know?
Yeah.
Join is another good one.
Yes. I like that because it kind of has this exclusivity to it. It's like welcome, it's like join the club in a way. Right. Which I think a lot of us all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. So I've always liked the word join too.
Yeah, especially if you can put in, like, if you've got big numbers, you'll often see like, you know, join the 250,000 entrepreneurs that are blah, blah, blah. So you're like, you know, we want to be in on that. If there are 250,000 UX writers somewhere in the world, I want to be there. I'm not sure that there are, but I would definitely want to be in that place.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, awesome. Okay, great stuff. I was going to say, I know Imagine's a big one for me It's just because like as a copywriter, you're trying to persuade them to take action. And so like imagine you're just slowly getting them, or sometimes rapidly, you're just getting them there in general to like, you know, how you want them to think. But if you're doing your job well as a copywriter, you already know, you're already joining the conversation in their head. You know what that conversation is like. So you're just really joining it when they land on your website, and trying to lead them, you know, if that makes sense.
It kind of plays into the same thing as Start, where you're just, you know, you're putting them in this place that they want to be already by being on your site. So yeah, it's a great word. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Susan, we're coming to the end of this. I want to know if there's any other UX writing tips that you think people can apply to their website today. I feel like you've already given a handful of structure, but if there anything like any other subtle things that you maybe think of?
Yeah, I think really pay attention if you've got an email sign up anywhere in your site. Often they come templated in sites, and it usually is something that's pretty generic, like, you know, join our email list. You know, subscribe now. I really think look at that and just, you know, you can make the tiniest of tweak there just by saying immediately what they're going to get when they sign up. Just be really clear, really transparent. I think that is a great place to start. And I would also look at your navigation and just make sure that you're not trying to be too fancy or clever. If you've got a blog, call it a blog. You know, people, you're not wanting, friction is making people think. Don't make people think. Just let them find, you know, call about, services, like just look at what other people are doing and kind of do the same thing, because consistency is really important for conversions, and it's not just consistency in who you are and the message that you spread, because we hear that a lot. You need to be consistent, you know, whether you know, wherever people interact with you, but you need to also be consistent with other places that people are looking for the same solution, because if you're the one doing something radically different, people are going to go, not so sure about that. So I think looking at your navigation and your forms, if you've got a contact form, I've seen some people get pretty clever with like, you know, instead of phone, they'll say bring, or like, I'm like, just call it a phone number.
Drop your deets here. It's like, just let's call it like it is. I love the navigation menu thing, because I've seen some weird ones, and it's just like, don't say read my thoughts, just say it's a blog if that's what it is. Because like people with websites, they're scanners. Like a big page is like obviously the home page, but like about page, you know, you may have testimonials, and you can just keep it, just say testimonials. Don't just say like a huge navigation button that takes up a bunch of time, like read what other people are saying, something like that.
Exactly.
Something to be super mindful of, which I think is great advice. And
on the testimonials thing, like have them everywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like don't
sprinkle them throughout it, if you will.
Yeah, just sprinkle them throughout your site so that you've always got someone other than you singing your praises on your website.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that's been something like I've been recommending to clients more lately, and even doing on my site, where it's just like I have like the main purpose of like the page of what, you know, why they're there, and then it's just like boom, a testimonial, because it just it can help answer questions, and it's building social proof at the same time, so it's super effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Testimonials super important.
Yeah. All right, Susan, I want to know now, since you are an entrepreneur, solopreneur, freelancer, how do you really label yourself? Do you say you're a freelance UX writer, or do you say you're like a solopreneur, entrepreneur? I always find this interesting how people label themselves, who are like pretty much just solo business owners.
I think I just call myself a business owner. Okay. I think I say I'm a UX writing consultant and I run my own business, is usually how I say it.
Beautiful. Yeah. I dig it. I just feel like I give a lot of freelance tips. So like sometimes I'm just like a freelance copywriter, but I feel like I'm a copywriter, and have my own copywriting business is really how I, you know, talk to people, or really represent that.
I guess I'm just trying to walk the walk and be as straightforward as I can.
Yeah, totally. I get it. Just that question just popped up. I'm always curious how, and because some people are just like, I'm a freelancer. That's what I am. So that's what I call myself. I don't really call myself I'm an entrepreneur in that sense. I don't know. I always find it interesting.
I'm a big fan of Tarzan K. I'm sure your community knows her. And she talks about, think it's actually, now I've dropped a name. I'm not so sure it is Tarzan K. So do your own research. But I'm pretty sure I heard it from her that she doesn't like to use the word freelancer because it can downplay the value that you contribute. You know, I like to call myself a consultant because I come into big businesses and hold my own in big teams and can contribute a lot of value. And I just don't think that freelancer holds quite the same weight as consultant does, personally. So
I do, not to play devil's advocate, I do feel it's getting stronger and more like credible now, just because not even just with COVID and like more people kind of working remotely and people looking for that. But yeah, I don't know if it has such like not negative, but can't think of another word right now, more of a negative connotation sometimes. Cause like you said, it does kind of lower value maybe a little bit. So I totally understand where you're coming from too.
You know what the UX writer in me wants to do? A/B test this. We need to find a way to A/B test these words and see what the best title is. So we'll think about that.
Next experiment. But Susan, what I was going to ask, I want to know, what are your go-to digital tools, apps that you use every day to help run your business?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think my answer is going to disappoint you. Excel.
Excel? Is that what you said?
I am not joking.
Oh,
UX writers live in Excel documents. Like, it is
you need
insane.
to just do like an Excel workshop for copywriters. I mean, I'd sign up for that if it could help.
I mean, it's nothing tricky or clever, but when you've got, multiple screens often, and you're trying to make sure that the copy, like copywriting is often all on one page, but when you're working in something like a mobile app, the experience can go across like 20 different screens. And if they, it's kind of like Pick Your Adventure books. If they hit an error message, they might go back to here, and then they go along here, and then maybe they come back here, and they're sort of moving all over the place. And Excel is just a really great way to keep everything sort of, to have some kind of organization and structure, and so people don't get lost and everyone can share the document. There are big fancy tools that people use like Figma and Sketch when they're embedded more in companies. But if I was to learn every single tool that every single client uses, like my brain would probably just explode, because everyone's got, a lot of the bigger companies also have bespoke tools that they use as well. And it can be quite complicated. So I think keep it simple. A lot of the stuff that I do, I always have big bits of butcher's paper. I always have Post-it notes.
Nice.
So I keep it lo-fi actually, and I often find that it can be quite a relief to a team because you can move more quickly. You can scrumple up a piece of paper and, map something else out.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I want to get an iPad because I keep hearing people just like, it's great to sketch on it, and then you can it lives in the cloud. You can have it on your MacBook or whatever you may use. There's other obviously different brands for it, but because
I love how our devices all talk to each other now. It's so good.
Yeah, I know. Because I just still like the feeling of holding a pen-like thing and writing something down. It's like I have Evernote and I have my notes, but sometimes I just feel like it's much more effective. And I mean, there's studies that prove it, that writing down goals, you're more likely to achieve them and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think from experience too, if you've got something perfectly mocked up, it feels less, it feels more permanent, and it feels like less collaborative. Whereas if you've got pre-COVID days, now it's, we're relying a little bit more on, Zoom and that kind of stuff. But you'd get everyone into the room with a bunch of pens and a bunch of paper and just, be mapping out all these solutions and getting the creative juices flowing. So, I think, I think you can make it complicated, but I don't think it has to be.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Susan, final two-part question. Here we go. This is a big one. Burrito or pizza?
I'm going to say pizza because when I was traveling in Mexico, a burrito-like thing, a fajita, made me really ill.
Okay. Brings up bad memories. I understand.
Pizza.
So pizza. I asked this because if you had to build a success pizza, what are the three key ingredients for that? So what are those characteristics?
Okay. I'm going to say, what am I going to say? This is hard. This is really hard. Just 3. Okay.
That's
I'm
great.
going to say.
You can elaborate. It could be broad and then just sprinkle some smaller ones, I guess.
Okay. Well, I think patience and consistency, I'm going to group them together.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because I think you have to just keep showing up and keep doing the thing, keep asking questions.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to wait for opportunities. You know, so I think in my career, patience has served me really well, and just sort of hanging in there. I think kindness and generosity. You know, try not to second guess people too much. Try to, you know, if someone does take advantage of your generosity, then that's fine. But I review a lot of UX writing portfolios. I answer every email anyone sends me because I find further down the line, those things come back to you. So I think that is, you know, and you don't just do it for that. Like, even if it doesn't come back to you, it makes the world a better place. It makes your life, makes my life more enjoyable, I find. And then, so I would say patience, kindness, and then I would say curiosity.
Yes.
Cool. Always ask questions. Don't be scared to look dumb. You're not going to look dumb. The smartest people I know are the ones that ask questions all the time. So yeah, join them. Be curious. Keep asking the questions.
Be curious, be kind, be generous, be patient, and be consistent. Again,
5.
more than 3 ingredients. It's like 26 ingredients, but hey, it's still really good. It sounds tasty, and anybody who takes a slice of that, I'll stop with the pizza puns, but good stuff there, Susan. I love it. I love that you said the patience, because or in the patience and consistency, it's like you got to sometimes still wait for the opportunity. But when you're consistent, you're going to know when that right opportunity shows up for you, because you're kind of learning as you go as well. So I love that.
Yeah. And you're there, you're visible.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Well, Susan, that's all we have for this Proceed with Passion Q&A. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Honestly, so much value in this. And even if I say it every interview, it's because it's true, I swear. But this was really good stuff. I feel like I was looking for a newsletter. I'm going to promote this. I'm just going to be like, this interview for 40 some minutes and change is going to make you a better writer and make your website better. Something like that. I'll tweak it, but
who wouldn't sign up for that?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Well, Susan, before I let you go, please let everybody know where they can follow you across the internet. And then if there's anything else that you want to promote, any, free download, anything on your site, please let people know.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely the place that I share the most value are my weekly emails. There's stuff. If you enjoyed this conversation, this is what I send out with the same amount of personality and general lightheartedness every week on Thursdays. And you can sign up from my website, which is susanreochcopywriter.com. Don't even get me started on the fact that copywriter is in my URL. That's a discussion for another day.
You couldn't get UX writer? Did it look weird? Did it sound like Susan sucks writing?
Yeah, good one. No, it was nothing that clever. It was just the beginning of my business, and I hadn't really, niched down properly yet. Yeah. So
mine is Terry Schilling writes, and sometimes I'm just like, oh, I wish I could change it, but Terry.
No, Schilling. I like that. I wish I could have right. I wish. All right. You did good.
Thanks for hearing me.
And if you can't find me there, you can always follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram. My name is super unique, so just search it. You will find me. Susan
Reoch.
Susan Reoch.
Reoch. I almost want to say Roach when you first see it, but I'm sure you
get it. That's what most people say.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Susan. Again, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Everybody, thank you for watching. If you tuned in live and watching the replay, hope that you take a lot away from this interview. This was so much fun. But Susan, thanks again. And we'll see everybody on the next Proceed with Passion Q&A. Cheers.
Bye.